She arrived like a fleeting dream, a small girl with rose-pink hair and eyes that carried both mischief and sorrow. A child who seemed out of place and yet destined to belong. Chibiusa is at once a mystery and a mirror, the innocence of a child entwined with burdens of a future far too heavy for such small shoulders. She is the echo of the moon's legacy, not yet fully formed, yet already radiant in her own fragile light. To know her is to witness the beauty of becoming, the way a seedling stretches towards the sun, unsure yet determined, delicate yet unbreakable. In her presence, we are reminded that even the tiniest star has a sky to claim, and even the smallest moon can cast its glow across the night. Sailor ChibiMoon's civilian name is Usagi Tsukino, but she goes by the nickname Chibiusa. Chibi means tiny or small, and Usa is short for Usagi, which means rabbit in Japanese. Combined, Chibiusa means little rabbit. Her name directly ties her to the Japanese folklore called the moon rabbit. It is a myth that tells the tale of a rabbit living on the moon pounding rice cakes. She was born on June 30th, making her a Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon in astrology symbolizes emotions, childhood, and dreams. Though she appears and acts like a young child, Chibiusa is actually over 900 years old in the manga. Her body stopped aging, in a sense, at about age 5 until she awakens her powers as a Sailor Guardian. Chibiusa is one of the most misunderstood figures in Sailor Moon. To many, she appears bratty, jealous, loud, and intrusive. The child who interrupts the romance between Usagi and Mamoru. The rival who whines, the guest who overstays her welcome. Fans who longed for the purity of the original team often viewed her as a disruption or an irritant. Many of us overlook and forget the fact that Chibiusa, in the end, is just a child. Misunderstanding is often the fate of children. What adults called annoying is more often than not the cry of the unseen. Chibiusa's stubbornness, her jealousy, her mischievous pranks, these are not flaws, but expressions for her longing. She demands attention because she feels she has none. She fights for affection because she fears of being forgotten. She pouts, complains, and clings, not because she is shallow, but because she is wounded. She embodies the archetype of the child shadow, the part of us that we often reject because it reminds us of our own vulnerability. To watch Chibiusa is to be reminded of the days when we ourselves felt small, powerless, and desperate for love we did not know how to ask for. It is easier to call her annoying than to admit that she reflects something unhealed in us. Chibiusa's past is not filled with the innocence one accepts of a child, but with absence. She was born into a shining kingdom of crystal and immortality, yet she grew up in its shadow. In Crystal Tokyo, everyone revered her mother, Neo Queen Serenity, as the luminous heart of the world. But for Chibiusa, this radiant mother was distant, forever adorned with the crown of duty. Her father, King Endymion, too belonged not to her, but to the city. And so, though she bore the name Small Lady Serenity, yet she felt anything but serene. She was lonely, desperately and invisibly lonely. At her core, Chibiusa represents the universal experience of feeling small in a world that demands greatness. She is literally the daughter of Sailor Moon, a messiah-like figure who saves the world again and again. To be born under such a radiant light is both a blessing and a curse. It gives her a destiny but also burdens her with comparison. Who among us has not at some point felt inadequate when measured against others, against siblings, parents, peers, or even the impossible expectations of society? Chibiusa's insecurity, her jealousy, and her frustration are reflections of the battles we all fight within. Her relatability also comes from her yearning for love and belonging. Chibiusa struggles with feelings of abandonment, being separated from her parents in the 30th century, being sent to the past, often unsure if she truly belongs anywhere. This mirrors the deep human longing for acceptance, for a place where one's presence is not only tolerated, but cherished. How many people, especially in their youth, have asked the same question Chibiusa carries in her heart? Am I truly loved for who I am, or only for what I could become? But perhaps most of all, she is relatable because she embodies contradiction. The child who wants to be grown, the fragile heart that wishes to be strong, the person who admires another yet feels resentful of them at the same time. These contradictions are not flaws, they are what make her real. In her, we see the mirror of our own imperfections, and also the reminder that imperfection does not negate worth. Her journey to the past was not only an act of desperation, but of destiny. For where do we go when the present rejects us? When the future feels impossible? We return to the past, to the beginning. Chibiusa's flight to the 20th century was a return to her origins. She went to the past to save her future, but in truth, she went to the past to find herself, to meet Usagi, not as a distant, untouchable queen, but as a flawed, clumsy girl who laughed, cried, fought, and failed. Only through this mirror could Chibiusa see that she too had permission to be imperfect, to stumble and grow. It reminds us that the past is not dead. It is a teacher waiting for us to rediscover it. And sometimes, to heal our future, we must become travelers, returning to the origin of our wounds and transform them into strength. In Sailor Moon R, Chibiusa, small and unchanging, longed for recognition. She wanted to be seen, not as a burden, not as a child in waiting, but as someone already whole. Yet everywhere she turned, she encountered absence, a mother sealed in a crystal, a father consumed by his obligations, friends who treated her as an eternal child. When a heart thirsts for belonging and finds only silence, that silence becomes a kind of poison. Then enters Wise Man, a figure of darkness who did not give her love, but gave her attention. He listened to her fears, magnified them, and whispered, "You were never wanted, you were never enough." And because the human soul craves acknowledgement more than truth, she listened, she surrendered. And so, Chibiusa became Black Lady, not by gaining power, but by surrendering her innocence. Her child body stretched into that of a woman, but this was not true growth. It was an imitation, a desperate leap to become what she thought others might finally value. Her transformation was the embodiment of a universal truth. When love is absent, even darkness feels like a kind of embrace. Philosophically, Black Lady is the possible self that waits within every child, the bitter adult born from neglected tenderness. She is a reminder that corruption is not always chosen. Sometimes it is given when comfort is withheld. And yet, her story is not one of final damnation. For when Sailor Moon reached her, not as a queen, but as a mother, with arms open and heart unguarded, Black Lady dissolved. The shadow yielded into light. Chibiusa returned, not because evil was destroyed, but because love at last was offered. Her transformation is a mirror held to us. Children do not grow dark because they are weak, but because their cries go unheard. And the return to the light does not come from punishment, but from the gentle recognition that they were always worthy of love. Later in the series, Chibiusa returns once again, but this time as Sailor ChibiMoon. She is no longer merely the child who disrupts Usagi's world. She is a guardian in training, a young warrior who has begun to embrace her destiny. Her return marks the beginning of a subtle transformation. At first, her powers are clumsy, her attacks weaker than those of her companions. But this is precisely what makes her growth profound. To step into battle knowing that you are the smallest, the weakest, the least experienced, and yet to fight anyway. It is the essence of courage. Each time she calls out her attack, each time she insists on standing at Usagi's side, she proves that maturity is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. She matures in another sense as well, emotionally. The child who once felt overshadowed by Usagi no longer competes for love and attention, but instead begins to develop her own sense of identity, As Sailor ChibiMoon, she is not defined by being the daughter of Neo Queen Serenity or the child of Sailor Moon. She is, for the first time, her own guardian, with her own duty, her own courage, and her own heart to offer. Her strength grows not only in power, but in spirit. The girl who once doubted herself evolves into someone who can carry the weight of others' trust. She learns that leadership is not about command, but about courage and love. By returning as Sailor ChibiMoon, she shows us the beauty of becoming. How a child who once felt small and forgotten can, through trial and love, become a force of hope. This maturity and kindness appears most clearly in the friendships she forms throughout the series. Sailor Pluto, the solitary guardian of the gates of time, lives in eternal isolation, a figure who watches but is never allowed to join. Yet Chibiusa, in her innocence, does not see her as distant or forbidden. She sees her simply as a friend. By calling her Pooh, a child's affectionate nickname, Chibiusa does something no one else dares. She softens eternity. Her kindness pierces the loneliness of a timeless sentinel, and her bravery allows her to treat Pluto not as a figure of awe, but as family. This relationship is profound because it shows Chibiusa's power to heal with love. To approach a lonely guardian of time and give her the gift of companionship is an act of both compassion and courage. Through Chibiusa, Pluto is no longer just a watcher. She becomes a mother figure, a confidant, someone who belongs. And for Chibiusa, Pluto becomes proof that love can bridge even the coldest distances. Hotaru Tomoe, aka Sailor Saturn, is feared by nearly everyone who learns of her identity. She carries the stigma of destruction, her very existence tied to silence, death, and rebirth. Even the other guardians hesitate to trust her, but Chibiusa is different. She sees not the destroyer, but the fragile girl beneath the burden. When the world recoils, Chibiusa reaches out. She gives Hotaru unconditional friendship when Hotaru is most alone. Her bravery is just as powerful. She risks her place among the Senshi by standing with Hotaru, even when others doubt her. In this, Chibiusa embodies the courage of love, the ability to defend someone the world rejects. Through her, Hotaru is not defined by her destructive power, but by the bond of trust that saves her. Chibiusa teaches us that true bravery is not only facing enemies, but also standing by those whom others abandon. In Helios, Chibiusa finds a reflection of her own heart. He is a lonely priest bound to the sacred realm of Elysium, carrying a destiny that isolates him from the warmth of others. When they meet, it is not power or mystery that binds them, but recognition. She sees his solitude because it mirrors her own. Her greatness emerges in the tenderness she offers him, a warmth he had long been denied. And her bravery shines in the way she stands by him, not as a child clinging to protection, but as a guardian who protects in return. Loving Helios is an act of courage, not only because their wounds are far apart, but because it is the moment she begins to step beyond childhood, embracing love as both strength and responsibility. Through these relationships, we see Chibiusa's true heart. She gives love to the lonely, friendship to the feared, and devotion to the forgotten. She does not choose the easy bonds, the safe affections, or the convenient allies. She loves those who are isolated, stigmatized, or burdened by destiny. This is the deepest proof of her courage, that she dares to love where others hesitate. That bravery is not only in battle, but in the willingness to give one's heart. And that kindness is not mere sweetness, but the power to see others as they are and still embrace them. Chibiusa's attacks may be small in power compared to Sailor Moon's, but they are rich in symbolism. They mirror her growth from a child clinging to others into a guardian who learns to wield her own light. Pink Sugar Heart Attack is Sailor ChibiMoon's first offensive power. Fired from her pink moonstick, it releases tiny pink heart beams that often misfire or distract the enemy rather than destroy them. It reflects how children fight, not with brute strength, but with persistence, spirit, and the refusal to give up. Her attack is playful, even silly, but it affirms that her heart, though small, still has power. Moon Gorgeous Meditation is an attack performed with Sailor Moon using the Moon Kaleidoscope. Together, they unleash a dazzling combined power. This attack represents unity between generations. Chibiusa no longer works only in her mother's shadow. She joins her as an equal, their powers weaving into one. Twinkle Yell is an ability that Chibiusa activates using her crystal carillon. She calls forth Pegasus to aid the Sailor Guardians. She does not fight directly, but acts as a summoner, her cry channeling hope into action. This is the moment Chibiusa matures into a bridge between worlds. She cannot yet unleash great destructive force, but she can be the one who summons protection for all. Pink Lady's Freezing Kiss is a unique power where ChibiMoon releases an icy blast. It reflects her development from playfulness into direct combat, showing she is capable of wielding real destructive force. Before becoming Sailor ChibiMoon, Chibiusa uses her toy-like companion Luna-P as a weapon and tool. It can transform into useful objects and occasionally emit energy. Luna-P represents childhood imagination as survival. It is not a weapon in the traditional sense, but an extension of her creativity. Its playful transformations symbolize her reliance on childlike solutions when facing overwhelming danger, reminding us that imagination itself can be a form of resilience. Together, her attacks tell the story of a girl who grows from fragile innocence into radiant courage. Unlike the other Senshi, Chibiusa's powers are not about domination, but about connection, persistence, and love. She is proof that even the smallest heart can radiate power enough to change fate. And so, Chibiusa's story is not merely that of a child who stumbled into the lives of the Sailor Guardians, nor only the tale of a princess learning to wield her power. It is the quiet testimony of how the smallest among us can carry the weight of love, courage, and destiny with grace. She reminds us that growth is not sudden, but a tender unfolding, that strength is born from vulnerability, and that even in the shadow of greatness, one can still shine with the light uniquely one's own. In her pink-haired defiance and gentle heart, we see the eternal truth. No matter how small we may feel, each of us holds within a future worth fighting for, and a glow that no darkness can ever silence. She is the whisper of tomorrow wrapped in the laughter of a child, a promise that hope will always return in new and unexpected forms. Her story teaches us that the future is not something we inherit. It is something we nurture with kindness, courage, and love.